Yes, welcome once again to another edition of Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. You know, I know that I really do try to start each one of these shows a little differently. First, I do have to tell you the name of the program. We're here with New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices. And then I usually go into the long diatribe about all of the other aspects of the program, where you can hear it, and supporting the program financially and participating in going into your inner life, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? I'm going to hold off on that because I've already said it in a manner of speaking. We're jumping right in here because it's a very important topic. And I have to say that the last couple of interviews, this one included, is a little off the beaten path of what we normally talk about. However, I think it's very important because it affects our individual and collective way of life. We are going to be talking with a woman who is going to be sharing with us about basically a toxic environment. Now, some would say, well, we already know that, Richard. We already know that we got all kinds of, look at Love Canal, for starters. 3 Mile Island, as another one. When we have hurricanes hitting the Gulf Coast and they take out oil, the derricks out there, the oil platforms, and take out pipe. We had a pipeline break here in Santa Barbara to the west of Goleta, California, a year or two ago, owned by an oil company. And the list goes on of the different things. But I don't think that's the main focus today, because we're going to be talking with a wellness advocate, a teacher, a healer. We'll find out what her modality is, artist, and spiritual coach. See, I told you, it is a little off topic of what we do, and yet, guess what? It's not, because what she's going to talk to us about affects our spiritual lives. Sandra Bolognia, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. And I know I just pronounced the G, and it's Bolognia. Thank you for being with us all the way from, you're not in Rome, are you? That's a beautiful Italian name.
Top of the day to you.
And a top of the day to you, too. Well, I'm coming all the way from Ireland. It's a beautiful place. We're going to have a wonderful time. And fortunately, 4-leaf clovers are not toxic. It's wonderful. I'm so glad. How are you today? And how do you measure one's, how do we put this, level of toxicity, just in a general sense? I mean, for all I know, my mood in the way I'm conversing with you and keeping this sort of light and breezy, I may have come in contact with some spores that were floating around, and I breathed them in as I was heading for work, and now I'm loopy as a jaybird.
That's a possibility.
Thank you so much.
You never know. I mean, that's true, but we're all used to being outside and being exposed to things, allergies and hay fevers and so on and so forth. I know I used to have it and still sometimes have a hay fever or something to that effect. Something's in the air that's irritating.
That's what they say, isn't it? I will tell you that as a kid growing up, I didn't have problems with with the allergies, especially around springtime with the heavy pollen. And it was kind of a good thing, especially considering the fact that we had these pine trees that my father planted, and the giant one that grew to, 30, 40, maybe 50 feet by the time I left at the age of 21, had those pollen packets. And in the spring, when the winds would blow, it would blow that all over the place. Now, I have an eldest sister, who, oh my goodness, had asthma, and that didn't help. And of course, we didn't have AC. We had an evaporative cooler. And of course, when you first turn it on in the summer, there's dust all inside those ducts. And it would, and of course, my mother would always say, please put a wet towel over the vents before you turn it on, so at least it'll collect most of the dust into the wet towel, and so on and so on and so on. But as I got older, I didn't have problems as a kid, but as I got older, into my early and mid-teens, every spring I would have the sneezing from the pollen and everything. And then when I got into my 20s, it went away. It just went away. And I was outside a lot. I bicycled everywhere. I was a paper boy 7 days a week. So I was outside a lot. That's just kind of the beginning, isn't it? There are certain things there's nothing we can do about. And would you actually classify pollen in this category of toxin because of the human reaction to it? Or how do we say, it causes distress in some people?
Well, I think it's a factor, no doubt, definitely a factor, because it's in the air we breathe.
Right.
If it's in the air we breathe, it has to be considered. But I'm thinking of focusing on more of the ones we place ourselves. We're not controlling the pollen, but it's there.
So we're putting ourselves at risk.
Those are the things that I think that people might not be aware of.
I got you. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Now, I worked with a woman back in, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. I was producing, back then, these teaching cassette tapes. Folks, if you don't know what a cassette tape is, Google it, okay? I'm not going to explain it. But she was doing a program having to do with what she referred to as homeostasis, because she had severe allergies, if you will. And she started working with a company that was producing all natural cleaning products and things of this nature. And it was real interesting how she would describe the process and how even the manufacturers, even at the harvesting of, like, for example, lavender and some of the other things that they would grow, first of all, they could not have two different crops growing side by side in the field because there would be cross-contamination. It wouldn't be genuinely pure. Then when they would harvest it and they would take it, let's say, into the warehouse or the barn, they couldn't just put a pile of this A over here and a pile over here and a pile here because, again, you're risking cross-contamination. And this was one of the things that she had a real problem with. She could walk into buildings and have an allergic reaction to maybe the plastics putting off fumes, or the rugs, or the paint, people's perfume and cologne, or even just their soap. And the list goes on. And these are the kinds of things you're talking about, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So how, I'll start with this. How prevalent is this problem in our population? What would you say is the percentage of our population, if there is any statistic, that has these kinds of sensitivities? I'm not sure whether that's the right word to use. I don't know what word you would use to describe this condition or this situation.
I don't have a statistic on allergens.
Okay.
And how many people have allergies. I do know that certain times of year myself, I'm affected. And I remember that I used to not even realize it, it just, everything grows in Florida where I lived and there's always something growing. And a certain time of year, March, and I thought there was something in the house and that was bothering me. And I opened up all the windows to later find out it got worse because it was from the outside, I didn't realize that this was whatever season it is, growing. So those are definitely things to be aware of. And most people become aware of it as they get older. They'll notice it's a certain season and maybe I'm going to have some sniffles and they take something to help that. But yes, so cross-contamination is one thing, but cross-contamination in a buildup of the body, I think is key. How many things are you exposed to that eventually it erupts? That's how allergies usually are brought about. My mother had an allergy to shellfish.
Okay.
And it happened late age. It was a buildup in the system. I guess the body doesn't know how to metabolize those things. If someone's genetics aren't able to metabolize the items in the air and expel them from the body, then they would build up in the body. And I think that's getting most people, making most people sick, is a buildup.
We're talking with Sandra Bolognia. She is a wellness advocate, teacher, healer, artist, spiritual coach, and she finds joy guiding others in the process of self-healing. And she is considered by many as a Renaissance woman, which is an interesting term to use for anybody for that matter. And she shares, that's in a good way, and she shares her holistic methods from her healing jewelry line to energy medicine, essential oils, and the importance of incorporating lifestyle changes for your overall well-being to people all over the world. This is Tell Me Your Story, and I'm Richard Dugan, and we're giving you new paradigms for a new world. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're also giving you new ways of living because, again, as I've said many times, just look around you. The old ways aren't working, so we got to find new ones. And especially in the context of our conversation with Sandra Bolognia here on Tell Me Your Story. What I find interesting too, Sandra, is I'm curious. If I was, if you, well, I guess let me go back. Is there a way to test, and let's focus on home. Office is a whole nother kettle of fish, if you will. Is there a way to test a home? Is there any equipment, test strips, et cetera, to see if there are potential allergens, using your term, in the air, or in the floors, the walls, the ceiling, et cetera, so that one can maybe, avoid, buying the home or renting that particular space and saying, no, I can't do that. And is it all of the new stuff, say in the last 20, 30 years, as far as dwellings? Does it go back? I'm living in a place right now that is stucco with wood paneling, floors, ceilings, and walls, and it's got to be 40 or 50 years old. And I personally have not noticed, nor has my wife, any real problems, and we're fortunate because we're kind of isolated where we live. So what about that? Is there a way of testing, and does the age of the dwelling make any difference?
Well, that's a good question. Now, I'm not really a building expert. However, I go with what is the material made from? Okay. Stucco and wood. Okay. Sounds safe to me. And I'd say that these environmental home toxins go back at least 50 years.
Okay.
And they got worse over time. And I guess the things in your home, what are the floors? Is it carpeted or is it wood or tile? Is it concrete? What kind of paint are you getting? Volatile organic compounds are in a lot of things that are in the materials that might be put on your couch or your fabrics, your curtains. Are they natural? Are they made from petroleum? What are the dyes made from? Those kind of things. So your house sounds lovely with the wood floors. I know I got rid of the carpet in my home quite a while ago because as much as you shampoo a carpet, you cannot get that completely clean unless you get a new one. So a lot of people, I think, go carpet free or wall-to-wall carpet free and use area rugs.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about measuring, there's different ways of measuring the volatile organic compounds. There are devices for that. I don't have one.
Okay.
There are devices to measure EMFs, electrical magnetic fields, the frequencies in the environment. And I do have one of those. But I read the labels like this woman you were speaking of that had the natural cleaning products. Mm-hmm. So yes, so you would be, if you had something that was releasing, they call it off-gassing in the home. So even if you went and bought, let's say, a natural mattress made of rubber, which they call latex, and then there's natural rubbers and man-made rubbers and so on, which are very, very supposed to be very good for you. Okay. There's a period where they off gas. And the off-gassing could be volatile to someone in the home during that process. Just like anything, like the new car smell,
Oh, God, it's a wonderful smell. But we know what that smell is. It's not just a spray that they put in there. It's the collective accumulation of all of the fumes, or as you've just used the term, off gases from all of the materials used to make the car.
Right. Exactly. So depending, and after being in a home made of stucco and wood for 40 years old, it's off. If there was anything in it, it's off gassed already. So you're good.
Yeah. Now, we have area rugs. It's not wall-to-wall carpeting on the floors. And we do that simply because we have a dog and cats who love to chase one another. And part of it is because we don't want them to be skidding around and banging into the walls or the furniture and hurting themselves. I don't care so much about the furniture so much, but I don't want them to hurt themselves. But also, it's kind of nice on the feet. We get to walk around barefooted, and it just feels very nice. So, I want to let our listeners know, we might mention certain specific products. I may mention some that we use, and you can then tell me, all right, is this a good cleaning product? Is this something that I should really be using? Now, we do check the labels when we buy stuff to make sure that, especially, that they're pet friendly. However, when it comes to labels, and primarily I've said this about organic food, okay? There was a strawberry grower here in California who got caught sticking an organic label on his strawberries and was severely fined. And It goes to my point. You can put a label on anything and call it whatever you want. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is. And that's where kinesiology comes in. Muscle testing, as I was taught.
Yes.
So, first of all, in terms of the products that I might mention, they're not endorsements in the positive or the negative. Okay, I'm just mentioning them, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this particular product as far as that's concerned. But let's talk a little bit about labels. What should we be looking for on labels, let's say in this context of cleaning products, whether it's a carpet freshener or shampoo, dishwashing soap, hand soap, because we're still talking cleaning, cleaning in like the bathroom, scrubbing bubbles kind of stuff, and maybe mopping the floors. If we pull up all of the rugs and we say, okay, we're just going to go crazy here, we're going to mop all the floors with a wet mop and some solution that will help to get up a lot of the sort of ground-in dirt into the wood grain. What are we looking for on the label?
Well, for cleaning, I look for the ingredients that I know what they are, for one thing.
And you can pronounce them?
My motto is, if you can't eat it, we're not talking about wearing it. But if you can't eat it, don't wear it. If you can't eat it, you don't want to put it on your skin. Same thing, if you have to go wear gloves to work with something, it could be an irritant. But cleaning products, I think it's going to have an aroma or some reaction. And sometimes they react with each other. There's lots of good products, like a lot of orange cleaners, citrus cleaners.
Ah, yes.
There's and there's a clay that I like that's French. They say it's from France. It's a white clay, and it's a really good scrubbing agent.
Okay.
For scouring, and it comes in. It's just clay,
Interesting.
but it's not scratchy.
Okay. They have these new white sponges. And I figured out how they managed to, I will take a regular sponge that has all the little holes that you can see. I mean, like big pores, shall we say. And I'll go to the stovetop to try to scrub off some baked on or cooked on mess. And I can't get it all off. I get this white sponge, and the brand is Mr. Clean. and I will wet it, wring it out, and take it over to that same spot. And within a couple of minutes, if that, I've removed it. Whereas I've used a lot of elbow grease with the other sponge, and it just won't come up.
Well, you make a good point on that one, because lots of times things do take a little more elbow grease if they're natural.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
even asked my mom, where do you buy it? Do you get it at Super X or CVS or, Bash's? Those were the stores when I was growing up, No, it's right here, boy. It's right here. We're talking
Right.
we're talking with Sandra Bolognia. She is going to help us to, I don't know if she's going to help us to necessarily detoxify our homes specifically, as much as be aware of and do what we can to remove what we can from our environment where we live. I want to say most of the time. Most of the time. Here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we're talking about removing toxins from your environment, from your home. I wanted to ask you, I want to go back to this whole issue of specifically cleaning products, okay? I've often thought, if I'm going to do a mopping and it's going to pick up the dirt just the same, why can't I just use water? I mean, it seems to me like water is just fine. I don't need to put down some kind of a solution. What is the solution really doing? Although there will be those who say, well, it's breaking up the dirt. It's breaking up any grease or oil on the floor and this and that and the other. And I'm just sitting here going, there's got to be an easier way. You mentioned citrus products, okay? And I've seen more and more of them come out. There's another brand. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, if they sell it where you live. I think the brand is called Murphy's. And they make
oil soap?
Murphy's. No, it's not just, no, it's not oil. No, wait a minute. Is it Murray's? Maybe it's Meyers. Murray's, I think it is. Myers. Thank you. Yeah, see, I don't even know how to pronounce the darn thing. But they make all kinds of different things, from laundry soap to fabric softener and other types of things of this nature, including dish soap and what have you. And from what I understand, those are supposed to be pretty good.
I actually was given some in a bundle of something that I tried with some natural things, and I don't use it.
Okay.
I don't like some of the ingredients in it.
Okay.
I don't think it's as pure as it claims. I think the marketing and the bottle makes it look clean. But I never did an analysis of the product.
Yeah.
There was some, I probably have something under the sink, but it's like a last resort kind of thing. If I run out of something, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't use it.
Now, here's something that I wanted to touch on, and that is, as we begin to become more aware as a society about these issues of these allergens in our homes, and again, we're going to try to stay focused there, we are starting to shift away from, and I don't know how many cleaning products are made with petroleum or petroleum byproducts, but there's a move, especially here in California, to get off of petroleum. And of course, there's the other side. Are you kidding me? Do you know how many things are made from petroleum? Plastics and this and that and the other? And I'm just sitting here going, well, there was a day when we didn't have cars. We had a horse and a buggy, and that's how we got around. And then all of a sudden, the automobile came along, and that's how we got around. And change isn't always easy, but it seems to me like we're heading in that direction where it's time. We've been doing it for over 100 years. We've seen the pluses and the minuses. Our planet's a mess. I think we need to clean up our home, okay? Don't care about climate change. Don't care about any of the science. If we're going to buy cleaning products, if you don't mind my segue there, we need to make sure that the cleaning products we're using to clean our homes aren't making the home, I'm going to use the word, dirtier with toxins. Your thoughts in that regard? Are you seeing that as the public becomes more aware, the corporations are taking note, kind of like they did with organics?
Well, I think that's a very good point. My perspective on this is that the more plants that we use for our cleaning, our clothes, our food, the more plants we incorporate and not petroleum byproducts or synthetic chemicals, the healthier we will be in our environment and our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feeling. So if the ingredients are natural, there's lots of natural ways to clean things, lots of natural ways. And sometimes you need something extra. I think the only thing that's chemical that I have, and I keep it like in a corner somewhere in the garage, is Clorox, is some bleach,
Mm-hmm.
which, my housekeeper, when someone comes to help me clean, I say, no, they always bring their own stuff, and it's all this chemicals. You're going to use any of that. You're going to use what I give you. And it takes more elbow grease is what it does.
Mm.
And sometimes you need a little bit of extra to do something. And but it's definitely, I don't think it's good for the person using it, let alone the people who breathe it after.
Yeah. And that's kind of the kicker. We're talking with Sandra Bolognia, and by becoming aware of the toxins that are present in our lives, we can improve our sleep, our attitude, including, and this is one area that I have dealt with, but I found out it was food that I was eating, inflammation, longevity, youthfulness, fitness, and happiness, not to mention eliminating the elements that you may presently have, the ailments, I should say, that you presently have. We're talking with, again, Sandra Bolognia. And what's the website that we want to send people to so that they can get more information about what we're talking about today?
Well, sandrabologna.com is probably a good place to start.
Excellent, excellent. And we are going to be linked to your website, Sandra, because I think it's very important that people get information. That's another issue I want to talk more about as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I'm so glad that you're with us learning more about this. We're going to get into the more metaphysical and spiritual aspects of this whole aspect of toxins as we continue. But one of the things that I was just looking at, having to do with what makes a healthy home. Can you help us in a basic way to figure that out?
Yes, absolutely. My goal always is to bring the outside in. If I can feel like the air is fresh when I'm in a home, then I think it's a healthy home. If I can breathe easy. And many times when people come to my door, they said, "Oh, it smells so good in there." And they're not even in the house. I just open the door because I have essential oils diffusing. I have, use essential oil cleaning products. And so I guess I'm used to it, but it's in the drapes, it's in the fabrics. The thing is that whatever you're putting in the air, your personal perfumes or your potpourri or whatever it is, it's going into the air. And it's going into the furniture, into the clothes, into your cells. And so those things are you're bringing into the house make a difference on how the house smells. And a lot of people, like here's a good example this time of year. You go to the store and you see these brooms that have a scent like cinnamon.
Oh, yeah.
It's not real cinnamon. It was made in the lab.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're better off to just buy cinnamon, or something, it's just, or put cinnamon in water and spray it. I don't know, but there's a lot of artificial pumpkin flavored things.
Oh, yeah. This pumpkin spice.
Right. Is it real made from pumpkin? I don't know. I love squash and I like to cook squash, and then I take the seeds out and I put those on a plate or a pan and put a little bit of olive oil and salt on them. And that's a snack. I just like the whole vegetable in its entirety this time of year. And then there's an aroma in the house. We always like the smell of good cookies or cookies baking, right? Or muffins. That's a way to get the smell in your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
And products like these Air Fresh products and Glade and the list goes on. Those are just chemicals. One of the things that I like to do is, those votive candle infusers. My wife likes to take one of those and the pot sitting on top and put essential oils that she knows are actually the oil from, say, lavender or rose or whatever. And that does that. And of course, I also, as most of us do around the holidays, love the smell of just cooking, whether it's the turkey and the stuffing and the pies and the mashed potatoes, and the list goes on of whatever it is that you cook in your home. Oh my God. And you can go through a neighborhood, like say Thanksgiving morning or late morning, and you can it's just everywhere because everybody's cooking. Everybody's preparing for the meal later that afternoon, and Christmas as well. So those are the kinds of aromas you're talking about. There are some that we might say, yes, I do like this particular food or that particular food, but I don't like its lingering smell, like fish or onions, okay, sometimes garlic. But something tells me that there's something to that. Now, because what I'm leading to here is these aromas, because we've kind of shifted into that for the moment, they not only elicit memories.
Yes.
Okay. They not only elicit memories, but they also, which means they're doing something to our brains as far as the pathways. But there's also something about that supports our spiritual health and well-being. Can you talk to that?
Well, it's not just aromas, it would be sounds too.
Okay,
yeah.
let's go with everything.
Aroma and sounds, that's true. So memories are triggered. So the smell of an aroma goes right through your nose to the amygdala, and it triggers memories. And those memories, maybe you're smelling candy canes. Like I have one diffuser, I put this called Stress Away oil in, and another one I put peppermint, and it smells like candy canes in here.
Oh, nice.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just one had peppermint and one is vanilla. There was vanilla in that one.
Ooh.
And it smelled like candy canes in the house. And so that was very pleasant. So that is one way and peppermint's very mentally stimulating, activates the digestion. So, there's definitely, and memories are triggered. So people get an emotional response from something that they smell. And they may bring up a bad memory.
Yeah, it could.
So that's why maybe some people don't like a certain smell.
I had lots of eye operations as a kid growing up, and the smell of ether is not one that evokes very many good memories. But the smell of a pine tree, a cut pine tree in the house as a Christmas tree, I have always enjoyed. And I will tell you that I have never used pine scent at Christmas. We will go to one of these pine tree lots where they have the boughs and so forth, and then we'll put them up on windowsills or up high. We'll hang them from the wall or what have you to have that smell. And then when they dry out, I put them in the fire to start a fire because they light right up, let me tell you. That's
bringing the outdoor in.
Bringing the outdoor in, exactly. That's another thing I'm curious about. Now, we have a fireplace, and I know that in some parts of the country, California is one of them, in the cities in particular, you're not allowed to have a fireplace. You're not allowed to burn in a fireplace. You want a gas fireplace? You can have a gas fireplace, except that for whatever reason, they've decided that they want everybody in the state of California to go electric. And it's like, but an electric fireplace isn't as efficient. Anytime you have to use electricity to heat, it's inefficient. Gas is so much more efficient because it's quick, it's almost instantaneously hot, and when you turn it off, it's almost instantaneously cold. So I don't know where the logic is in that, but I'm curious about that in terms of especially the holidays and talking about these things. What about when we like candles? We love to have candles burning in the house. But isn't there a downside as far as this issue of toxicity?
Yes, candles are, I know, I can't believe that my brother-in-law was visiting and and got me a gift, and it was a scented candle. I'm like, he's known me for how long, and he gets me this scented candle. I had to give it away, or I don't know what I did with it. But I can't. Most of them, I think they make candles out of more natural products, soy candles, they're scented with real essential oils from plants. But I can just smell it. No, so I can tell the fragrance. So
Right.
I diffuse oils from a diffuser in an ultrasonic no sound, excuse me, ultrasonic mist, which then permeates the air, changes the environment. And I use the Luminara candles and the candles that use batteries.
Oh, yes.
I love
Yes.
those. I have them all over.
Well, we use the battery powered ones with the little disc batteries, but that also presents a whole nother thing. And this actually raises a bigger question. Okay, so I want to detoxify my home. And first and foremost, I'm going to start by changing out all of the cleaning products. You made an interesting comment, especially when it came to the scented candle that your brother gave you. You're not going to use it. And if it's not good for you to use, why would you give it to anybody else? So now what do you do with it? And now all of this stuff goes into the landfills. Now what have we done?
I agree with you 100%. It's a question. Now, what do I do with it?
What do I do?
I don't even know what I did with it. It's probably still in the garage. I don't remember what I did with it. But yeah, it's just an issue, and it's a concern. Even with an object, like at one point in time, there might have been a religious object that I have, but if I don't want it anymore, what am I supposed to do with it? And unless I know somebody who would treasure that, would pass it on. But that's a whole nother subject, really. But one of the most, Richard, one of the most toxic things that's in people's homes that they don't realize are dryer sheets and fabrics.
No.
Yes. And I go for a walk in my neighborhood and I get so offended because I'm smelling this toxic smell because it's going out into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so I realized it was this one woman on my street. I don't know the people on the other streets but I asked, I said, and so she's a realtor and she was in her office and I walked by and I said, can you step outside? Because I didn't want to say anything in front of everyone. And I said, do you use dryer sheets? And she said, yes, mice hate them. She said, she was told that you can put them around and keep mice away. I said, the reason they hate them is because they're toxic. And so it's one of the worst sources of VOCs in the home.
By the way, that was a recommendation. When you live out in the wilderness, which we sort of do, I mean, we live in the Los Padres National Forest up on the hill above Santa Barbara. And it's on the county. It's in the county, but not the city. With lots of oak trees around, the whole bit. And of course, all the animals. We have a deer. We've had a bear up on the property. We hear foxes off in the distance, not to mention our own animals. We used to have a flock of turkeys on the property and so on and so forth. But we also have rodents, all right? And one of the recommendations by my mechanic was, and then I looked this up on YouTube and it's supposedly true, and to your point, they say take a couple of dryer sheets, wrap them around and secure them to one of the maybe metal cross beams or a hose in the engine compartment. Because when you live out in the wilderness like we do, there's a real risk that rodents will get up into your motor when it's still warm to stay warm, and they will then chew on the wiring and all those kinds of things. Right. Well, that dryer sheet wrap will repel them, keep them from going into that compartment because it'll heat up when you're driving. But then the thought just occurred to me that it's the same thing as if it was tumbling in the dryer and then the air is coming out the vent hose. That's going to come into your cabin of your car or truck, whatever it is, and now you're getting the toxins.
Exactly. So think about that. Why do
Wow.
the animals,
Yeah.
it's, and people don't get it. So a lot of people are still programmed to like that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a process of showing people, it's eliminating. When I first started this, changing the products was 22 years ago.
Wow.
And I started diffusing the oils. And I say 15 minutes twice a day. I started to get headaches. You have to drink more water because the natural way of getting rid of toxins is naturally drink water. You're going to eliminate it through your digestive system. You're going to eliminate it through your skin. And that's how you want to do it slowly. If you do it too quickly, you'll have a healing crisis. And the more toxic load that you have with all of these things that we're bringing in the house ourselves, on top of whatever else is going on, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're eating, is it any wonder that people get sick?
Yeah.
They don't even realize it.
Sandra Bologna, sandrabologna.com is her website. We will be linked to her website so that you can get more information about the work that she is doing. And it's mind, body, emotions, it's spirit. It's beginning your journey to wellness. You want to heal yourself. And in the process, you're going to heal the earth. You're going to raise your spiritual vibration. Let's talk a little bit about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm here with Sandra Bologna. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and this is Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. Sandra, what about that in terms of, our spiritual health? Now, I know that you've already mentioned, for example, sound and music, and that kind of thing, along with the aromas that you want in your home. But we're talking now about sort of going into that realm of the 2020s, the decade of perfect vision, where we encourage people to go within, to listen to that still small voice, to find that quiet, peaceful, calm place where they can relax, they can re-energize, they can rejuvenate, but they can also get information, they can get encouragement. And I mentioned kinesiology a little while ago. Muscle testing. I was taught that, oh my God, almost 40 years ago. And there comes a point when you don't have to do this anymore. You just know that
Exactly.
this isn't good for you. I shouldn't, this particular item that is in the non-organic produce section, but I go over to the organic produce section, hoping that the labels are correct. Okay, this is okay for me. This will work for me. What about this whole aspect of, how do we put it, fortifying, bolstering, supporting our spiritual health and well-being?
Well, it's a process. I believe that the muscle testing is, sometimes people don't know how to muscle test. And basically, you don't ask a question, you put it in a statement, a positive way. So if I'm curious about this, this is a supplement. This is something that I took to a restaurant. It's called the Dandy Blend. It's dandelion, chicory, and it's like a coffee substitute.
Uh-huh.
And so, okay, so you would have the product and you'd think, or you'd have it in your hand and you do your muscle test and say, Dandy Blend is good for me right now. And if it goes right through like that, no.
Right. Correct.
It's good. Dandy Blend is a good thing for me to have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If it goes, yeah. So it's like that. And eventually, you're right. The process, you just know.
You just know.
And one of the things that I had a very interesting experience, I don't know how many years ago, I would walk in the grocery store. You go down the cereal lane.
Oh, yeah.
Cereals, and I looked at them like I was in a horror. Like I looked at all of them. Like, I can't touch these. And I used to love Cheez-Its, Cheez-Its were my favorite things. It's like I'm looking at them. I don't even want to reach, it's
Right.
I'm like, it's like yeah. But last year I had anxiety in 2020, early 2020. And the only way that I could change it was meditation.
Mm.
So that did it for me. So I decided to go inside and take control and listen, and it just went away.
Wow. Well, I know that that is a big issue that the mental health community is now facing. We've gone from the COVID-19 pandemic to, in this country specifically, but I'm sure it's more global, a mental health pandemic because of the stress that people have been experiencing. And I would venture that if a survey were taken, I would bet you the numbers would be close to 80 or 90% of the population, global population, is suffering from some form, some level, from a scale of 1 to 10 of PTSD. Now,
Yep.
I myself was fortunate in that I was able to work, and I'm still working through the pandemic, but not from home. I would still come into work every day. My routine basically didn't change. So in one sense, I was lucky that I was able to maintain that. But I was unlucky because I also had to listen to the whining and the complaining and the moaning and the groaning about what they're being asked to do. And I was saying this from the very beginning: if we'll do what we are being asked to do, we could be done with this in 3 months. Well, we didn't do what we were asked to do. There were too many individuals. And again, I'm not passing judgment. If that's what you chose to do, that's fine, you know. But I guess I had a conversation with a gentleman not long ago about the whole issue of masks, and that's not where we're going with this. But I said, okay, you've quoted a lot of numbers. That's great. And so far over 700,000 Americans. You know, maybe some other foreign nationals and so forth and so on. But we lost 700,000 human beings, people that we used to work with and play with and live with and sleep with and so on and so on and so on. And it's like when I hear the numbers, I just think these were people with lives and dreams and memories and hopes and aspirations and fears. And we're just kind of sloughing it all off because of the facts, because of the statistics. And to me, that's one of the biggest problems I see when we start talking, let's just say, about this whole issue of toxicity in our homes. Again, that's where we're really focusing, is that people, and I also realize too that people don't care much for change. I mean, change is the one thing that we're programmed to fear, to hate, to despise. And I sit here going, no. Change should be your friend, should be your lover, should be your partner. You should say, as George Jr. said to the I guess it was the Taliban or whatever back in 2002, bring it on. And I say to change, bring it on. Doesn't mean that my life is necessarily going to be without challenge, but it's going to be different. It's going to be different. So do you see that a lot of people, in spite of the fact that they get this information from within about certain things that are toxic to them, like, oh, I don't know, maybe the red dye on this cup, okay, that could be toxic, or anything else for that matter, they resist it because they don't want to change.
Or they like it.
Or they like it. That's true too. I mean, it took me 60 years to get off of Coke.
Well, there you go.
Soda.
People are addicted to their lifestyle, to their food. We are addicted to food. I mean, I did 5 cleanses last year and 6 so far this year.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. The master cleanse is what I did. And so because it's a way to detox the body and reset yourself, you know, and a lot of people can't do that, nor do they want to. We're addicted to it. And, you know, there's a lot of parasites living inside of us that are controlling our behavior.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
it's not so much that we need to worry. We need to worry about government intervention or alien intervention. We've already got it happening within us from the parasites.
We're a universe of our, that's right.
Yeah.
We've got, people don't want to admit that that they have parasites. Oh, I don't have any parasites, Yeah, you do. I mean,
What? Are you
I,
crazy?
yeah, right. So there's a lot of things and when you set up an environment it's the terrain theory versus the disease or the germ theory. If your terrain can't grow anything negative, it won't live. That's
Mm,
the idea.
mm,
Clean, get rid of the stuff that nurtures the
right.
negative stuff and create an environment that fosters and grows positive thoughts and good feelings, right?
It's been said that sugar, in whatever form it might be in, actually facilitates the growth of certain cancer cells.
That's right. Well, cancers feed on sugar.
Yeah.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So if you sour or eliminate the food supply, most likely, again, and I'm not an oncologist, ladies and gentlemen, check with yours before you do anything. But it seems logical that if I just eliminate the sugar, and I'm wondering if I go to natural sugar. I've heard that maple syrup, pure maple syrup, is better than cane sugar, but it's still sweet.
That's what I use.
Yeah, I love it.
I like maple syrup, but I don't take it too much because it is a sugar. But I like stevia, and I have a natural one that I use.
Yeah.
There's monk fruit. There's also these miracle fruits that you can chew first, and anything you eat after that's sweet.
Really?
Yeah, it's called miracle fruit. I want to get a tree. I haven't gotten. They will grow in this climate, and I'm probably go in California too.
Where are you? What part of the country?
I'm in South Florida.
South Florida. Okay, so we're opposite ends, if you will, of the country.
Yes, we're different coasts.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So
well, it just
interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is very interesting. One of the other things that I'd like to talk about as we continue here on the program, talking with Sandra Bolognia regarding detoxifying, removing toxins from your home. One of the things that I was looking at here was that most importantly, mindfulness meditation. You mentioned that was one of the things that you do, mindfulness meditation, and how we choose to live, in our vehicles, our human bodies, in that case. That's what I refer to it as well. And on Earth, our homes will determine how sensitive we are to becoming aware of these toxins that may be present or around us. And that's along the lines of using our intuition, or as we've talked about before, kinesiology. The body doesn't lie, does it?
No. That's another thing. If you eat something new, or if you eat something, you feel good. Let's say you feel fantastic, and then you go to eat something. Be mindful. How do you feel now after you ate that? How does it make you feel? Do you eat something and then your knee hurts, or your eyeballs get puffy, or something?
Mm-hmm.
Then be aware of that. What did you do that changed? Did you put something on your skin? Did you go somewhere the body responds pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's an intelligence that we have if we listen, because we are just a physical extension of our spirit.
But part of the problem is that we haven't been taught how to listen. As a matter of fact, what we have been taught is not to listen. To listen to listen to the voices outside of ourselves, our doctors, our elders, if we're children or young adults, or whatever other authority figure. And it kind of goes back to a 1960s phrase. Now, granted, I was in single digits at the time, something along the lines of never trust authority. And it's like, wait a minute. Those are diametrically opposed. So why aren't we listening to ourselves?
Yeah, we have all the answers inside. Yeah. All we have to do is listen. Mm-hmm. And that is what I hope to help people do. Each person's different. Things affect people differently. And you're the best healer You are your own healer. That's what I believe. And so people often ask, well, what do you do for this? What do you do for this? I don't really like to give all the answers because the key is finding yours. What's your best thing to use? That's the key. Let's figure out how you can figure out what you need.
Absolutely. And that's really the kicker. And it's like I told my physician back in July, and I can give you the exact date. July 23rd of 2020 was a Thursday. Thursday evening, I decided that I was going to drink one and then two of the glass bottle Mexican version Cokes that were in our refrigerator, thinking not a big deal, I'm being careful. But I was also had a symptom. I was drinking lots of water and I was peeing a lot, which is the first symptom, one of the symptoms of type 2 diabetes. And of course, my wife knew this, and immediately we set up an appointment. So the 24th, I go in. The first thing they do is they check my blood sugar, 544, supposed to be in the low hundreds, 100 to 120, maybe down to the 90s or 80s, 504. Wow. Normal A1C is supposed to be 5.7. Mine was 11.2. And after about 30 minutes being in a little bit of shock, going, no, it's not like I was told I had the big C or anything. But still, it's like, oh boy, am I going to have to take insulin? Of course, fortunately, that wasn't the case and so forth. But the doc says, Richard, it's going to be a long road. And I said, no, it's not. Once I got my composure back, I said, no, I know how I got here. I got here because of the pandemic. Because when we were all locked down and told not to go anywhere, the foods that we chose to eat, which diverted us from our normal greens and produce heavy diet, went to processed foods, which are heavy in sugar and carbs. And even when they apparently you can take the A1C and you can get an average blood sugar level, and mine was between 275 and 300 for a 3-month period prior. And I said, no, it's not going to take long. Anyway, so I get the little meter and the little stick pin and all this kind of stuff, and I get the medication that they prescribed, metformin. He says, take 2 every day. So I did that for about 3 weeks. I noticed that my numbers were going down, so I'm going down to 1 metformin. Didn't tell him. And I continued to stay. I haven't had a soda since the 23rd of July 2020.
Congrats.
And by the 15th of September, my my blood sugar was down in the mid to low hundreds. 100 to 150 would fluctuate. By November, when I went to see him, my A1C was pulled at 5.7. And my average blood sugar was probably 115.
Congratulations.
In February of this year, same thing. Now, I asked him in November, what about the metformin? Can I get off of that? Because I didn't want to be on that in the first place, but, I did it. Scary. More so to placate my wife and the doctor than anything else. But I then did my own self-prescribing and took it down to 1. Then in November, he said, okay, why don't you take it down to 1? So I just stopped taking them altogether. My blood sugar still stayed down because I stuck with the original diet that we had prior to the pandemic. And it's been fine ever since. And I check it every so often. So it's one of those things where it has been said, in addition to the mental health dilemma that we're facing, pandemic, I think we're also facing a physiological or biological pandemic of epic proportions because even before the pandemic, I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, Sandra, but the obesity rate in this country alone, which exacerbates heart disease, kidney disease, as well as diabetes, type 2 diabetes, has got to be going through the roof.
I lost 45, 50 pounds last year.
Wow. I lost 20. I was at 195. July of 2020, I was weighed in at 182. And the last time I was weighed, when I had my gallbladder removed this year, in August of this year, with, by the way, a golf ball size gallstone and a very infected gallbladder, I was down to 174.
Awesome.
Now, I don't recommend that as a diet, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you.
Well, I didn't change my diet. I just, it was frequencies. I
Yeah.
just used frequencies and had some hormonal issues going on and changed the frequencies and the weight just fell off.
Tell me about, what do you mean by frequencies? Describe that for us.
Well, I have a frequency doctor and I have a little frequency device that I'm running a smooth coherence program right now. So everything goes smoothly. And so I used, basically there was an issue of polycystic ovaries, cysts, multiple cysts, which is notorious for holding on to weight. So no matter what my frequency doctor discovered that and used frequencies and put the frequencies in water. And I drank the water and used my frequency device and the weight just fell off.
You
in 2
know,
months.
I had the privilege of narrating a documentary back in 2005, 2006, regarding Royal Raymond Rife's frequency generator. You're familiar with it.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And what I find interesting is that the medical community and science has not yet accepted the concept. There's another gentleman by the name of, I think it's Stephen Lewis. I think that's his name. He wrote a book called Sanctuary. We've had him on this program. And he has a program called EMC Squared, where you send him a photograph of you head to toe. He puts it into the computer. And the computer is able to now analyze your photograph exclusively. It's you that you're looking at. It's kind of what the Indians, you used to hear about the Indians not wanting you to take their photograph because you would take their spirit.
Right.
And what the computer does is it analyzes the photograph and then it sends out to you specifically what you might call the balancing frequencies for those frequencies in your body that are out of balance.
And that's what we talked about with that woman, homeostasis. That's it. You want to maintain homeostasis.
Yeah.
Right.
It's absolutely incredible. It really is.
There's a Russian device that does that. Was it a Russian device?
Are you talking about the Rife frequency? Oh, you're talking about this gentleman, Stephen Lewis?
Yes.
No, it was here in the States.
But I mean, the device might have been from Russia.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Although I will say this, I kind of, we went, and I tell you where I met Stephen. It was at a lecture given by Wayne Dyer back in 1998 or 99. We went to see him at a local facility in Phoenix, and Stephen was there. And he was describing this concept. And of course, I do sound editing. And on my screen, if I'm looking at a true stereo signal with a left and a right, where you've got, let's just say for the sake of argument, you got guitars on the left channel and trumpets on the right, but then you have violins on both and so forth. If you were to take one of those channels and flip it out of what they call out of phase, and then you mix the two channels together, the dissimilar frequencies the dissimilar frequencies will be brought to the forefront of the sound wave in terms of your listening, your ear, and the similar frequencies will be pushed way into the back. And I found this out through the process of creating sing-along tapes, like how people would create karaoke, kind of things from the original music from the artist and his singing and everything, right? So it would push the artist way in the background because he'd be on both tracks, but the instrumentation would be brought forward. So I diagrammed this out, and I actually talked to his I think they refer to this type of position as the bulldog, sort of his protector, so to speak. And I was trying to set up an interview with him, and I was sharing this with her. And she said, "Oh, no, he doesn't want to talk about that." I said, "Well, why not?" She says, "Well, because if that information fell into the wrong hands," and my first thought was, "Well, wait a minute, I'm the only one who's ever thought of this." I don't think so. I believe in the 100th monkey theory.
Well, that's very interesting because when you take for example, I don't know if you ever heard of holographic kinetics, but there is
No.
and in any frequency in a healing mode, it's a healing modality. And when you have a certain issue, like let's say you have a frequency of a drug, for example, a frequency of something negative, you take that frequency and hit it back at 180 degrees and it knocks it out, neutralizes it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what in my mind, I process that, and it's like, if I knew how to design a piece of equipment to do that, I know what it is that I'm trying to do. And I think Royal Raymond Rife was doing exactly the same thing, because he was testing these different diseases in the cells under an electron microscope. It was the only way he could do it, because he needed to look at live cells. Dead cells didn't help him any. They had they didn't have the vibration, the frequency. And I think that's the same thing.
And just think about all the frequencies we're being bombarded with now.
I want to talk about that as we continue, okay? I want to talk about EMFs and or EFMs, I don't know. We'll find out how that goes. And we'll talk more about that with Sandra Bolognia, and sandrabolognia.com will be linked to her website here on Tell Me Your Story. As we talk to Sandra Bolognia here on Tell Me Your Story, I want to ask you about this something you mentioned earlier in the program. And I know that it's a big concern for a lot of people, especially now here in 2021, when we are now talking about this new concept. It's new to some people, called 5G. And we're talking about EMFs and how to reduce them, as well as our air quality. And I want to know a little bit more. The only thing I can think of that might help is if I surrounded my entire home in what they call a Faraday cage that would somehow block it all out. But I'm not sure I'd get it past the building codes inspectors. Talk to us about what they are, where they come from, and how we protect ourselves, or maybe you can't, and how we minimize the impact of them on us.
Well, that's a really good question, Richard, because it's a lot of EMFs going on around. And now in the last year, I just went back. I was a computer science teacher for 20 years. So this past year, I finally went back wired. Now, right now I'm using Wi-Fi because I wanted to sit in my living room and not my office, which has a window right behind me. So I am using Wi-Fi, but I have gone Ethernet. And that made a 12th of the EMFs.
Now, when you say you went Ethernet, you're talking about using what's called a Cat5 cable rather than through the air.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have wired my computers so that, and I measured it with this device, this Tri-Field, which is an inexpensive one. There's a lot better devices than this, but when I found out about the device, this is the only one I knew about at the time. And you can measure the electromagnetic waves in the area. So it went from 12 to 0.5.
Wow.
Yes.
Just by eliminating Wi-Fi.
Correct. On my computer. Wow. So I moved my modem, which used to be in my living room, into my office. And I did put a Faraday cage around it. I was looking at these Faraday cages and around the modem. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how well it's working because it's a makeshift one. But I looked up all these things and they looked like these metal files that you could get in Home Depot, which I got years ago. Mm-hmm. They're like these things you put files in,
right?
Made of mesh, and they looked just like that. And they were like, I don't know how many times more expensive, right? And I have a bunch of them. So I just put one down, then I put one this way so you could put something in it. I put the modem in there and I put the wires in this thing and put another one on top and it's completely covered.
Okay.
In these mesh things.
So all it's doing is keeping the emanations of EMFs from coming out at the strength that they were, but the modem still functions normally.
The wires are coming out, right? The wires is coming. Yeah, it's still functioning.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's not probably as pure as it could be because it was makeshift. You know, it was
Right.
what I had. But it got it in a position by my desk that was good.
I've heard it
And
said they're made out of copper. Is that right?
No, these are made out of steel.
Steel. Okay.
There are so many things you can do. I have my house surrounded with organite. You know, organite. And here's a pyramid. This has a field of 105 square miles.
Wow.
Yeah, and it has shungite in it and has copper in it and crystals. This one, a friend made it for me. He was an art teacher, but he actually took 3 years to surround South Florida in this stuff.
So
And
that's the problem with South Florida.
since 2006, it took from 2003 to 2006. I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but anyway, so we haven't really had a hurricane hit
Wow.
in
Well,
this area. In this area,
I will tell you that speaking of hurricanes, and this kind of does tie into what you're talking about, I may not have been a real big fan of televangelists in the 80s and early 90s. And the reason I even bring it up is because I worked for a Christian radio station for 15 years in the 80s and early 90s. But I do remember one instance where Pat Robertson, who I believe is still alive, he made a comment about a hurricane that was coming and that they were going to pray that and ask God to move it. Now, whether it would have moved without their prayer or not, we will never know because they prayed and it moved. Now, I don't know where it went. I don't know. I don't remember where it hit landfall, but it avoided wherever it was that Pat and his group were and the city and the area of that the part of the country. So I'm wondering about this aspect of prayer meditation. I'm a Reiki master. I know that I'm just a conduit. I don't direct the energy other than to the person or situation. What the person or situation does with it, that's up to them. So I'm wondering, when it comes to purifying our homes, detoxifying our homes, and that kind of thing, can that kind of energy work be helpful in removing or minimizing the toxins?
absolutely, absolutely. You can put a field around your house. You can put a field around your body. You can put a field around whatever you're strong enough to put a field around, for one thing. And you know that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's setting your intention. But if you have things that can hold the energy or support that, and these are kind of like what we were talking about, neutralizing the frequencies. What these do is neutralize the negative frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things. Pulling your bed out 8 to 12 inches from the wall. If you have something plugged into it, I unplug my internet every night. I unplug it. I have done that for probably 15 years because I know what computers do. You know, used to shut a whole room of them off every day. And a lot of people just leave their computer on all the time. I shut it down.
Well,
so there's so many things you can do and you can feel the difference.
Yeah.
If you're sensitive enough.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I have a computer at home. It is 15 years old. It still works. It's still running Windows XP. I bought it in 2006 when we moved to Santa Barbara. I've been wanting to change it, but I haven't had the opportunity yet. I'm hoping soon. But I will go in. I will turn it on. I will do what I need to do, and then I'll just shut it down. Only just more because of the fact that I don't want to waste the electricity. Okay, which it's probably not using that much, but I will take every little bit I can get, considering that our normal electric bills were $75, and during the summer here in Santa Barbara, it was like $150 to $175. And I'm thinking, no. And I knew the computer wasn't the culprit per se, but I figured every little bit helps. We do have a modem. It does have Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi actually sends the signal to our TV and Roku sound bar in the other room. So I haven't figured out yet how I'm going to run a Cat 5 cable from the modem to, but it could be done. It actually could be done. I've got a Cat 5 cable that's long enough to do that.
Coax goes into most TVs, I think. So
Yeah,
my
oh, yeah.
TV has coax in it. My Roku TV doesn't, but I haven't used it. And then the other one. So you have a cable box. If you have a cable box, that'll connect the.
Well, we have a Roku device. We do not have service in the house from cable, nor do we have service in the house from satellite. It's all DSL and phone line. That's how it comes in. And it's been working fine for 15 years. I haven't really had that much of a problem with it. You know, little spurts here and there where they've had to come out and change out the modem to upgrade it and this kind of thing. But I've also heard, too, about this whole concept which can affect your home environment, the new 5G antennas. And what I understand, and this is what's interesting to me, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, Sandra. Europe has said no to 5G. They've said no. They know something. But America, we are independent and we're going to do it our own way. And we don't care what Europe does because we're going to do it our own way. And they're putting 5G all over the place. What do you know about it? What can you tell us about it?
Well, I know that it makes things convenient. And I know that I don't really want to be around it, but I know that the street where I live, there's a website you can go to see all the places that there's 5G. It tells you if it's 5G, 4G, and 3G. And it's NPerf or NNERF. It's probably in my computer somewhere. And it's a map and it shows the world, and the United States is full of it. Canada, not so much. Mexico, not so much. It's sparse in most places, the big cities. Russia doesn't have much. Europe has some. I don't remember just from this map of seeing it, but you can go right down to the street.
Yeah.
And see where the 5G, and it'll be colored. Red's 5G, green's 4G, and whatever goes like that.
I do have to agree with you that America is full of it, but that was a beautiful Freudian slip there. I do have to tell you, because for some reason, we just don't want to learn from people outside of America. It's and it's like, come on. Why do we have to keep reinventing the wheel? It's already been invented. So what if it was invented by a guy in his garage in Germany or in Italy or France or Portugal or Spain or Yugoslavia or wherever else? So what? Guess what? You get the benefits of this discovery, of this invention. But we just don't want to learn. It's like we just don't want to listen to anybody else.
It's just, ooh, look. And I'll tell you, I remember being one of the forerunners in the turn of the century here in the late 90s when I was a teacher teaching people how to use computers, and people were just having a hard time getting it, And I said, I can't wait to the day when they all have it. And then I remember when wireless came around and it didn't work, and I was excited about it, but I didn't realize the repercussions 20 years ago of wireless.
Well, I remember back in 1994 when I was first introduced to the computer, my biggest fear was that there was a red button somewhere on this keyboard, and I was going to find it, and it was going to blow up the computer. Okay? Then I was told, Richard, there is no red button. You don't have to worry about it. And just go ahead and learn. So I did. And my very first computer was I think it was called a Core Data computer. It was like in a suitcase of sorts. Actually, Okay. And the front panel came off and had a small little screen with the green letters when you put it in there. Had two floppy drives, the big 5 1/4
big?
floppy drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd put your operating system in floppy drive A. You'd put the program you wanted. And my very first program, my very first word processing program was First Choice. Rather appropriate considering my book is called Choices, 5 Steps to Life. And that's where I started writing my first, now someone said it was more like a journal, but maybe it was. But anyway, that's where I first started working on a computer. Then I moved up to a 286 and a 386 and a 486. And then, and I have more experience installing Windows 3.1 off of the floppy, the smaller 3.5-inch floppy disks than anybody on the planet, because I thought I knew so much when I first installed it. And I was going through the directory of the files. I'm going, well, I don't need that one, and I don't need that one. And by the way, you know what the extensions were on the ones I was deleting? DLLs and EXE files.
Oh, well. Oh.
So I'd reboot the computer and it wouldn't work. And I'm going, what the hell happened? I don't understand. And it wasn't until I did it maybe 3 or 4 times that I realized, oh, those are important files. Don't delete them. Leave them alone.
Yes.
And then I started building them. I started building computers.
Awesome.
I would build them. I would get the towers and I would get the peripherals and the motherboard and the whole bit. And I used to build models as a kid growing up while I listened to my recordings for the blind and talking books for the blind. And a computer, when I built a computer, it was nothing more than, hey, it's just a working model. You know, that's all. And I don't have to worry about getting glue all over my fingers.
Because there's little places to put it.
and I knew where to put the stuff, and sometimes it would only go in one way. There is, and I learned a great lesson from computers, and I would like to talk about this before we wrap things up here, because I know we both need to, we've got a deadline of on our clocks and so forth. But the big lesson that I learned from computers early on is that there is always a workaround. And I'm wondering if there are additional workarounds, shall we say, like whether it's the Faraday cage around your modem, whether it's using the types of gems and or crystals that you might place around your home. We also have one of these. They call them salt lamps. Does that sound familiar? Light bulb inside
I have one
this.
in every room.
Yeah. What is? First of all, tell me, what is that supposed to do?
They're negative ions.
Okay.
So most of the things in the electronic devices are emitting positive ions, and so the negative ions are neutralize that and makes it a homeostasis in the environment.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that crystals and stones and your salt lamps do.
Well, it would behoove us then to get some additional ones. We did have an air purifier that just basically pulled the air into it through the filter, got the dust particles. That was probably more what it's for than anything else. It didn't do anything other than that to pull the dust particles out of the air, which is still a good thing. But anything that one can do to energize the atmosphere in their homes, to bring it into a balance. So it's not all negatives and also not all positives, but a balance, right?
Right, exactly.
That's what you're looking for.
And that's what these kinds of things do. They, offset the positive ions from all the electronics. And that helps us feel calm. So you know how it's nice to go outside and how it feels in a beautiful place. If you want that feeling in your home. And so learning these keys of having something. I try to have a salt lamp in every room. I have crystals in every room. There are feng shui. There's the energy, where you place things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many things that people can do. There's always a workaround. Feng shui, and the original source of feng shui was called Vastu. And I have a book on that. And the founder of this little device wrote it. So it's Indian. So there's ways of placement, plant placement, how you arrange your furniture that is energetic. There's just so many things that can be done. There's always a workaround. I think that's so true. And keeping ourselves center so that we know what's going on around us, because it's the field that we're generating, that we're supporting, right?
Right.
This is our environment. Our bodies are an extension of our spirits. Our homes are extensions of us, and so on. So it's going in. You're back to your statement and your motto of going inside.
Yeah, going within, trusting that still small voice.
Yeah.
Sandra Bolognia is my guest, and we're talking about removing toxins from your home here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I'm glad that you folks have stayed with us throughout the program. We are now going to bring it to a conclusion, at least for today, because I know there's probably a lot more that we could talk about in regards to that, whether you get a Faraday cage, whether you get the gems and crystals, whether you spend time in mindfulness meditation. And, I realize that this is probably an extreme measure, but if you have to burn the house to the ground and start over again, tear it down and rebuild, do what you got to do. But first get the permits, get permission, and make sure your neighbors are okay with that. Because you don't want to you want to talk about toxic energy, you're going to get a lot from your neighbors. I
just had my roof replaced, so I can tell you that's the fact.
Yeah. And that must have been an interesting experience in and of itself. Before we let you go, first of all, I want to thank you for giving us so much time and sharing with us your insights on how we can improve our living, our living space where we spend most of our time, especially over the last 2 years. Most of us have spent. Not me, but most everybody else has spent in their homes and Zooming all over the country, all over the world. And I really do appreciate the information you have. And the people need to do their due diligence. Go to your website, which is Sandra Bolognia.com. Will be linked to your website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was really, really a lot of fun today. Thank you.
Well, I do have 3 final questions that I like to ask my guests, and you may have addressed them at sometime during the program, but I like to ask them directly. But before I do, I need to talk to you, the listener and the viewer, and say thank you for listening and viewing and watching. Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And we are here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. But don't forget, there's a 9 a.m. Wednesday edition of Tell Me Your Story. I hope that you will participate by listening to these programs. Go to the podcast locations as well. They are SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many others that we have linked to. So I hope you'll subscribe. But I also hope that you'll go to the YouTube channel, Tell Me Your Story, and watch these interviews. And you'll be able to get to know us a little bit better by sight, and that's always a good thing. It's always good to see the people that are talking instead of just disembodied talking heads, if you will. So I hope you'll do that. And I also hope that if you are able to do so, you can support this program financially. We would greatly appreciate it. I mentioned earlier that I used to work for a Christian radio station, and I made a promise to my listeners, Sandra, years and years and years ago. I would never pull the tactics that these ministers would pull by saying, and if you don't support the program, we're going to have to take it off the air. I'll just take it off the air. If I can't afford it, I'll take it off the air. I won't produce them anymore if I can't afford it. So I'm not putting this burden on anybody. This is my challenge. But if you would like to be a part of the work that we're doing by changing the world, one toxin at a time, if you will, we would greatly appreciate it. Go to PayPal. And when they ask you where you're asking to send the support, you're sending it to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address, richard@richarddugan.com. And I thank those who have supported this program in the past and those who will support it in the future. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We also want you to participate in the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s. And again, we're asking you to go within. Trust the still small voice. It's yours. It's there for you and you alone. I've never said to anybody, God told me to tell you, Sandra, that you need to cut your hair shorter, you need to get a different style of glasses, and you need to walk backwards the rest of your life. So that's, it's not for me. I don't have that information for you. Only you have that information for you, right?
Right.
Absolutely. With all of that said, I now get to the 3 final questions. I feel like I'm playing the final round of Jeopardy or something. The first of those 3 questions is, who is Sandra Bolognia?
Sandra Bolognia is a female human who is become a teacher to enjoy this world, be connected to this planet, and be fully grounded in this body so that it can interact with other humans and critters on Earth.
What is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you're doing now?
Well, my goal is to help others find their purpose, to find their gift so that they can share that. Because I believe we each have something unique that if we're able to express it, and we all know what that is by going inside, then we will express it because we're all part of this beautiful puzzle.
And you've sort of addressed it in your answer, but I'll ask the third question of you. What is your life's purpose?
Yeah, I feel my life purpose is to help others, to plant the seeds, to just be there to support wherever they are and the people that I'm with in my life as I enjoy this life.
Well, Sandra, we have enjoyed spending this period of our lives with you. Thank you so much once again. And we look forward to having you back on the program in the not too distant future to see what progress you have made, the people that you work with have made, and maybe even our society at large has made in terms of reducing the toxins in our home.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. It was really a joy.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to lol.